Welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. If you're just joining us, we were going over the distinctions of different parenting styles. So we've gone over the authoritarian parent, which is an outdated, controlling style parenting, the authoritative parent, and the permissive parent. But what about the parents who aren't present or conscious enough to support their kids?
I'm glad that you asked that. There's a final parenting stage called the uninvolved parent. And I don't like to talk about it. That's why I didn't bring it up. The uninvolved parenting style is characterized by very few demands, low responsiveness, little communication, and these parents, they fulfill the child's basic needs. They're generally detached from their child's life. And in extreme cases, these parents may even reject or neglect the needs of their children. And it saddens me that, we have these types of parents that are out in the world and they have chosen to have kids and don't really take their responsibility to raise those kids as a priority in their life. And, I hope that we do have uninvolved parents listening, although I have, very little experience of them listening to me when I speak or when I talk. They normally can't hear what I'm saying. They might be listening, but they don't hear me. And so a lot of times, they might listen for a little few minutes and the language isn't right on. We're not the same frequency. And so what they do is they justify that, whatever they justify, and they move on to something else. We're just not interesting enough. The ones that are listening are interesting. They hear something in their inner voice, their soul, their spirit that says, this is right on. This is stuff you need to be hearing. This is stuff that you need to be checking in with yourself so you can get yourself to the next level. So uninvolved parents, it's sad to say that, but they're out there, and, hopefully the community can help raise those kids. They say it takes a village to raise a child, and it's the teachers and the mentors and the church advocates that are out there, with these kids, trying to plant those seeds and build those kids up because they're not getting it at home. But I want to go over just, generally what happens as a result of these different parenting styles. So the authoritarian parenting style generally leads the children to who are obedient and proficient in their life. They rank lower in happiness, in social competence, and self-esteem. The authoritative parenting styles tend to result in children who are happy, capable, and successful. The permissive parenting style often results in children who rank low in happiness, self-regulation. These children are more likely to experience problems with authoritative people, like managers. They struggle in their workplace because they're not used to being told what to do or giving instructions, and they tend to perform poorly in their school, in education. And then obviously the uninvolved parenting style ranks the lowest across all life domains, and these children tend to lack self-control, have low self-esteem, and are less competent than their peers. And so they struggle and they see other kids that are excelling. And it's sad because it's not their fault. They just happen to be born with, parents that haven't had that wake-up call, that don't see the value of making some changes and growing and evolving into the next stage of helping their kids get to advance in life.
Now, when you say the uninvolved parent, initially I think parents who aren't around, so they're not around for their kids, but you can be a parent, you can physically be there and be an uninvolved parent,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. There's, I had this story about there's a dad that works, he gets up really early, leaves at like 4 a.m. and he gets home about 3 in the afternoon. And his kids are home at around 3. So he gets from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, he gets about 7 or 8 hours at home with his kids. And then you have another dad that works, from 8, or 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. And when he gets home, he really has about an hour with his kids because his kids got to go to sleep by 10. And so the father that, has 8 hours in the evening to be with his kids can really be checked out. He can be, he can kind of reside in his garage and, tinker on the car and watch, football, Monday Night Football, and kind of just check out, but be there physically, but not be there emotionally, present in the moment, engage with their kids, asking them questions, helping them with their homework, being inquisitive, being interested in their kids and what they're up to, and having conversations and enlightening them and empowering them. He could just be checked out and just all about him, or worrying about the bills, or what he's going to do next, or what's his purpose. And he can be all stuck in his own psychological dysfunctions that he's tuned out. But he's there 8 hours a night with his kids. Then you have the dad that comes home late and he has 1 hour with his kids, but he's present and he's in the moment. And when he gets home at 9, instead of eating his dinner, he goes right up to his kid's room, and he's sitting there and he's talking to him, or he's telling him stories, or he's asking them how their day was, or he's on the floor playing, Play-Doh or checkers, or he's rolling around with his kids, and he's engaged and he's connected, and he's giving them those kids what they need, and that's that natural, authentic love. And kids need to be seen, they need to be recognized, they need to be noticed, so that they know they have a purpose, so they know that they matter, so they don't grow up realizing that, having these beliefs that they're not important and they're not worthy and all that kind of stuff. So you can really make a huge impact with your kids just by checking in on them, just being connected, just eye contact, just look over at your kids every once in a while and have them catch you staring at them. That's powerful. If you could just look over at your kid and stare at them, and your kid looks over and sees you and they get all embarrassed, what's the first response that your kid will say to you?
Why are you looking at me?
Why are you looking at me? And then you just smile and you say, because you're beautiful, or, because I love you, or because, I'm in awe of watching you and what you're doing. And it's a great opening to acknowledge them, or just let them know how much you appreciate them, or build them up. But just having your kid look over at you and see them is enough. But you can't be checked out. You can't be unconscious. If you're unconscious, you're not giving those kids what they need to become powerful and capable human beings to create extraordinary things in their lives. If you're on Facebook for 4 or 5 hours in the evening, you're checked out. I hate to say that, but it's true. Facebook is for healthy-minded people. It's not for dysfunctional people. If you're dysfunctional, and you might not want to recognize if you are or not, but I'm just going to speak about it generally. If you're dysfunctional and you're on Facebook, you're probably spending a lot of hours on there, writing stuff and posting stuff and getting stories, and you're up there because that's where you're getting your goodies from externally, attention, all the payoffs that dysfunctional people get from external sources. So it's really about you checking yourself and asking yourself, what kind of a commitment do I have to my kids? Is it the same commitment that I had when they were first born? I bet you when your kids were first born, you had them in your arm and you stared at them in the eyes, and you would feed them their bottle, and you would get lost in their eyes for hours, just staring at them and wonder what my little boy is going to be like. And you visualize your son being the president of the United States, or owning his own business, and you going on vacation and going to, Thanksgiving dinners at his home with his lovely wife, and all those great things that are happening, from your vision. And you had that commitment to create that for your kid. Well, what happened to that commitment? Where did it get lost? Where did you get disempowered? Where did you lose hope? And the trick is, the question you want to be in is, how do I get myself back to that? How do I rekindle that love I have for my kids, so that I can step back up and reinvent myself as a mom or dad, and really empower my kids to create extraordinary things for themselves moving forward? Now I want to talk about the difference. I was kind of teasing earlier that I want to talk about the parenting style that really helps create extraordinary kids. And that's realizing, one, that you're that controlling parent, you never shifted, and realizing that the parenting style that you want to reinvent yourself is called the coaching parenting style. And I haven't really heard anybody talk about it. It's just my version of what I'm working on myself, as well as teaching some of my other clients how to live as the coach, how to shift into being the coach. Now, what a coach does is, a coach has patience, and as a parent, patience, will take you a long way. And so, as a coaching parenting style, you have to have patience, and you have to ask a lot of questions. So instead of trying to put answers into the kids, as a coaching parenting style, you're asking questions to where you're drawing the answers out from them. You're actually asking those questions so that when they answer it, they hear themselves answer it, and they go, oh, I came up with that, right? So if I started to ask you questions about, well, what do you think? And well, what are you going to do next? Or how are you going to handle that? And as you start thinking about it and talking to me about it, and as you start coming up with your own answers, my face is lit. And I'm like, yeah, that's an awesome idea. Good for you. And I high five you, or I give you a hug, or I give you a knuckle, fist pound or whatever. I'm reaffirming that the answer that you came up with is powerful. And I'm acknowledging you for you coming up with that answer. That's the kind of parenting style that's going to empower kids to start raising kids who can think for themselves, so that they're not still in your home playing, video games on your couch at 30 years old. And so this coaching parenting style is what we need to shift into. Start realizing that I need to start going back to school and learning how to be a better parent. And so that's kind of the premise of where I want people to start realizing as a possibility.
I love that you have come to this conclusion on your own. It's like you kind of created and made up your own parenting style, because I could go online and I can look up the authoritative parent or the permissive parent, and I can find all kinds of information, all kinds of research on it. I mean, hours of scientists and, everyone just putting their opinion on what it is, and all kinds of studies, but there's nothing really like this yet. It's just something that you kind of made up or did and found that this is right for you, or this is how you wanted it to be. Yeah,
well, it takes practice. It was my own journey of practicing, and I happen to be a life coach. And so as a life coach, I'm really teaching myself how to be a coach. And so you don't know this yet, but you were my lab rats. You and your brother and your sisters were kind of like test babies, and I was, testing myself to see how I can reinvent myself. And I happen to be a life coach, so as I was, practicing helping other people, realize their strengths and helping them realize their personal power, what it took for me was to be patient and understanding, and I had to ask questions and help them draw out their own answers. So why would I not take those tools and adapt that into my parenting style? And so that's what really how that kind of came to, is I took my coaching abilities that was helping others, and I practiced that with you guys. And you guys are amazing young adults, and you guys think for yourselves, and you're out there in your own journey, and I let you struggle because I know that struggle creates perseverance. And I'm okay with that, because I know that struggle for me has taught me how to be a powerful leader, how to think outside the box, how to adapt and overcome. And I don't want to rob you guys from that life lesson. And so the awareness and the consciousness and the coaching, all that comes into play as a parent and helps me be patient. And am I perfect? Absolutely not. But like I said, parenting's not about being perfect. It's about being aware. And it's through the self-awareness is where you can make those adjustments and start fine-tuning your ability to be more effective as a parent. It's really about effectiveness. It's not being perfect or doing the right thing. It's really about asking yourself, how effective am I as a parent? And you want to know your results? Look at your kids. Your kids and how they're showing up in the world is a direct result of your parenting style. And I hate to say that, if you have kids that are struggling, sometimes being disturbed and taking an honest look at that is maybe what you need to wake you up, to realize that maybe there's a possibility that you're in their way, that you need to grow to get out of their way so that they can follow you and chase your legacy.
Yeah, a lot of the times I hear parents, and I'm sure you hear this way more than I do, they'll say, especially for their teens, they'll say, Johnny's 15 years old, he can make his own decisions, so if he gets in trouble, it's his fault. And I think that's a version of a parent that doesn't want to take responsibility for the way that they raised or taught or inspired their son. And I think just they choose to separate themselves from it by saying, oh, he's 15 years old, he can make his own decisions. And that kind of goes back to your son or your kids are showing up the way that you raise them or the way that you are.
Yeah, by your example. I kind of like what you said about the parents that separate themselves. I do agree you should separate yourself from your kids' results from the perspective that you don't want to beat yourself up from it, or separate yourself where you don't take it so personal that you start to go, down into a slump. Separate yourself from their results, so that it frees you up to be there for them, to give them a hug, to ask them questions to help them, work their way out of it. Separate yourself from it so that it frees you up to empower them and inspire them. But don't separate yourself from it so that you can blame them and then put more damage on them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Separate yourself to free you up so that you can figure out how to support them in it and kind of guide them through the process, help them make sense of what it means to them and how are they going to, what are they going to do next, help them create a game plan. But by all means, don't separate yourself as a way to say, well, look what you did, and then throw it back on them to create more damage and more dysfunction on them.
I was kind of thinking a little bit too, earlier you were kind of talking about the parenting style of controlling, and we were kind of going over that it's okay to be controlling to a certain extent, but you have to reinvent yourself. And even if you start off it from the very beginning with this coaching parenting style, you're constantly still going to have to keep reinventing yourself. So other than asking questions, which you do with me a lot, and all of us, my brother and sister, what else other than the questions would you say that you're doing?
It's a great question, but I'm not doing anything. I'm focusing more on who I'm being. So I'm practicing being more loving, more patient, more inspiring. I'm practicing being more vulnerable, more connected, more present in the moment. I'm practicing on being a better listener. So I want to switch the words. So it's not about doing more, doing different, or doing better. It's about being something different, being something new. When you go to church, for those people that go to church and they hear, the sermon, or you hear the word, and a lot of it is about go out and be a better human being. And you go and you listen to that sermon, and as soon as you walk out, a lot of people go right back to being the same dysfunctional human being, drinking and fighting and cussing, and you got all this traumatic stuff. We're not evolving as a society because we're not putting emphasis on evolving, our spirit. We're not practicing on being a better friend. We're not practicing on being all those goodies that we need as the core. Work on your core, work on your inner self. And then all the doingness will take care of itself. It'll just you'll get those creative ideas as you be more understanding and more patient and more connected and more interested in your kids. Focus on those things. So if you want to really make that change, you should sit down, open your notebook, and start writing down all the different ways of being that you want to focus on mastering, that you think at the core is necessary for you to show up as an empowering and inspiring parent. And I just want to leave it with this. The reason why most parents, from my perspective, don't shift into the coaching style is because it requires a lot from you. It requires for you to constantly be checking on yourself and challenging yourself and digging deep. And, just like if you go to a gym, a lot of people don't go and work out because it takes work, it takes effort. It takes, a lot of perseverance. You got to really kind of do the work. And a lot of people don't want to do the work. They just want instant gratification. They want you to take your kids to psychologists and say, here, fix my kid. Or they want to prescribe them pills, or they want to ship them off to Utah to some kind of a group where they, boot camp or whatever. And that doesn't work. It takes old school, getting down to the roots and realizing that you are in the way. And if you want your kids to follow suit, you're going to have to make some changes within yourself.
Sounds great. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. If you're just joining us today, we went over some of the different parenting styles, as well as introduced a new one. So if you missed any of it, or you'd want to hear it again, you can always find it on our podcast online. We're going to go over a quick recap so you can find out what you missed.
We went over the authoritative authoritarian style as a parent, where you're being and using your authority.
We went over the authoritative parenting style, which is a more democratic style.
We talked about kids need to know why in today's world, so you need to have the patience to explain it to them.
We talked about convincing and enrolling your children.
And the permissive style parenting, which is that they rarely discipline.
We talked about the effectiveness of because I said so.
We talked about the controlling style parent will not work as the child evolves in their teens.
We talked about the uninvolved parent.
We talked about the coaching parenting style as the new form of parenting where you empower and inspire your kids to be great.
We talked about not telling your kids the answer, but letting them figure it out through a process of questions.
We talked about having patience and how patience will go a long way.
We talked about how the coaching parenting style requires a lot of work, but is necessary.
And parenting isn't about being perfect, but being aware.
So like I said, if you missed any of that, you're going to want to find the podcast online.
Absolutely. Go to KHTS or yourhometownstation.com and look for podcasts, and then go to My Conscious Dad, and it should be up soon.
So next week, we're going to be talking about role models. What kind of role model are you? Who you're being for your kids?
Yeah, for me, this was probably in my journey was most challenging for me, which was wrapping my mind around realizing that I needed to make some changes. At a certain point, I can talk all I want and I can be the best coach and give the best advice, but what's really going to have my kids follow suit is being the example, and me being the first lab rat, me first testing it out on myself. And so as I'm shifting and changing and being that, then I get permission to, coach that and inspire others to step up into it, especially my kids. Your kids know when you're being a hypocrite, and I think that could be even more damaging if you're expecting them to grow and, change and develop and evolve, and you're not. I think, and I don't know what the kids' perspective looks like. What do you think it looks like from the kids watching, your parents say one thing and then you're watching them do something different?
When you're younger, a little bit younger, before your teenage years, I don't think you notice or know that your parents being a hypocrite. You don't label them as that, but you are following what they're doing or who they're being versus what they're saying.
Well, you're not mature enough to know that they're a hypocrite, but later on you realize,
right.
Wow, how hypocritical of them.
Right. So when you get a little bit older and now you're a teen and you know what it is to be a hypocrite, you start to realize that, and therefore you're going to model yourself after what they're doing.
And if that happens, you're not listening to them no more. You lost them. Hey, listen, I want to give a big shout out to Alice Suarez out in Las Vegas for tuning in, one of our favorite listeners. And if you want to let us know you're tuning in, go to Facebook, find us on Life Coaching with Alex Urbina, and let us know you're tuning in. We'll give you a shout out.
Thank you for joining us today on My Conscious Dad with me, Jasmine Urbina, and my dad, Alex Urbina. We're here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.